Good evening. Not sure if we should call this late night Lombardi or Lombardi after dark. Those are our two options, but this is, I believe, the latest that I've ever done a show. And I'm going to try to make this as interactive as possible because it's got to be a little less formal this late. So either late night Lombardi, Lombardi after dark, but we're here to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo and how he might match up with the Dallas Cowboys coming up this week. On Sunday, it's a renewal of a great rivalry. 49ers and Dallas. That was my childhood. This is the kind of stuff that I love. I think all 49ers fans are getting nostalgic this week. It's 49ers-Cowboys week, and we're about to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo, how he performed against the Rams, and how it might translate into this game against the Dallas Cowboys, who have a good defense, who have a good edge rush, and they actually have a defense that might look a lot like the 49ers defense schematically because it's Dan Quinn, who's the defensive coordinator of the Dallas Cowboys. He comes from the Seattle tree. Remember, 4-3 defense, cover three. I know cover three is not as prevalent in the league. It's died here over the past few years. Even the 49ers have diversified their coverages on the back end. So have the Cowboys. So has Dan Quinn. But, their old defensive coordinator, by the way, who Dan Quinn replaced, was Mike Nolan, former 49ers head coach. I mean, he was terrible. They couldn't stop the run with Mike Nolan. They've gotten better, still have that weakness. But anyway, with Dan Quinn, what he's running, the fronts that he runs are related to the fronts of the 49ers run because Dan Quinn, Robert Saleh, they were together with the Seattle Seahawks. Saleh now with the Jets. DeMeco Ryans has taken over the 49ers. But you can see how the coaching trees kind of, live on and how the relationships continue from coach to coach. And the fingerprints are with each team. Today, this to me is wild. And this has to do with the 49ers, obviously. But we saw a ton of firings here over the past couple days, right? And there are now no more Bill Belichick disciples in head coaching positions in the entire NFL. The only guy who, worked under Bill Belichick or played under him is Mike Vrabel with the Titans, but he didn't coach under Bill Belichick. So, I mean, you talk about Belichick, obviously one of the greatest coaches of all time, but he certainly has not had the same downstream effect like the other Bill Walsh, the 49ers Bill, who had the biggest coaching tree of all time. You could even go to the Bill Walsh coaching tree on Wikipedia, and it's so impressive. How his legacy, how he was able to pass on his knowledge to other men in the profession and how that has left ripple effects that continue to this day. I mean, Kyle Shanahan, in a way, is an honorary member of the Bill Walsh coaching tree because Mike Shanahan was with the 49ers from 92 to 94. Obviously, Bill was no longer the coach then, but through George Seifert, Mike Shanahan picked up a lot of the Bill Walsh techniques. And then obviously Kyle Shanahan was a ball boy on those 49ers teams from 92 to 94. Coincidentally, Kyle Shanahan was on the sidelines to see the 49ers and the Cowboys play those epic games. Pat Summerall once said, and this was before the 1994 NFC Championship game, in 2 weeks we play the Pro Bowl, in a week we play the Super Bowl, today we play both. That's how big those games were. That's how star-studded they were. I mean, they were the most star-studded games in NFL history, especially that 1994 one, which the 49ers won over the Cowboys. So we'll get to see a reprisal of that. I mean, obviously not nearly the same amount of star power will be on the field at Cowboys Stadium, but we'll get to see those two iconic franchises on the field at the same time, playing each other on Sunday, overlapping in the playoffs for the first time since 1998. And guess what? This is the first time in NFL history that two franchises with 5 Super Bowl titles have met in the playoffs. So it's been a long time coming, and we get to see 49ers, Cowboys. I get to take a drink of water. This is a big one right here. And right after I do that, we're going to talk some Jimmy Garoppolo. It's good to see that we got a decent crowd this late at night. Most people are going to watch this in the morning, but it's growing. And, maybe we'll crack that century mark here in a second. But either way, I know the vast majority of you watch the replay. Those of you who come on right now, though, get to ask some questions. All right, here we go. We're going to talk about Jimmy Garoppolo today, and I have a few points to go through. First off, just looking back at the Rams game, Garoppolo got more accurate the more he was hit throughout this game, whereas Matt Stafford got less accurate the more that he was hit. I thought that this was a poetic dichotomy in the game, illustrated a lot about Jimmy Garoppolo's style of play, his grittiness, really what ends up making him successful, despite the fact that he's such a polarizing figure. But obviously, Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't playing behind an A-list offensive line. Trent Williams was out. Mike McGlinchey's been hurt for weeks. 2 backup tackles for the 49ers. But that wasn't the first time that Jimmy Garoppolo has beaten a good Rams defense with 2 backup offensive tackles. So he entered that game knowing that he was going to be in for a little bit of a beating. He took a lot of a beating in the first half. Colton McKivitz gave up 4 pressures. Tom Compton gave up 2. Brunskill at right guard wasn't good pass protecting. And Jimmy Garoppolo got hit around a bit. And 2 of those hits ended up as interceptions and turnovers. And you obviously want to avoid turnovers, but you also want to avoid having your quarterback get drilled when he throws the ball. The first one I thought for sure wasn't Garoppolo's fault in the first half. The second one, yes, he sees those free rushers coming from the right side. He just don't throw it into triple coverage. And George Kittle had 3 guys around him. It was extra damaging because the 49ers were in the red zone. It was a time where you just don't want to take that chance. And, it went along with this, point. Garoppolo is very aggressive on short middle routes, and it can cost him and his receivers. There was a play later in the game where I think it was the 49ers' penultimate drive in regulation where Garoppolo tried to squeeze one into George Kittle, and Kittle just got drilled. This is the main reason that Jimmy Garoppolo's interception rate is a little bit worse than average. It's back to 2.7%, which is the same as his 2019 rate. And it's because he is super aggressive with those passes right, in his bread and butter. And the 49ers yak sweet spot, he tries to use that quick release to fit balls in through double coverage. Often it works. More often than not, I guess I would say that it works because he's an efficient quarterback on aggregate. But a lot of those damaging interceptions come when he, just tries to take the chance a little bit too far. And when those free rushers were coming in, when the right side of the 49ers offensive line failed against the Rams, that's when Garoppolo forced the ball into George Kittle. And I thought that was the interception that, yes, it wasn't fully his fault. The 49ers need to do a better job protecting Jimmy Garoppolo. But, risk management is something that he can still get better at. And risk management means just take the sack there or somehow get that ball thrown away. Maybe that's a little too myopic. Maybe you can't count on a guy to throw the ball away when 3 free rushers, including Aaron Donald, are about to smoke him. So maybe the sack is what you have to take. But you can understand why he forced that ball, but you can understand also why it wasn't the best play. But still, back to the first point, the overarching, baseline, truth that I'm delivering here is that Garoppolo did get hit a lot in this game. So did his counterpart, Matthew Stafford. Guess who ended up with the better overall game? It was Jimmy Garoppolo. Guess who ended up delivering in the clutch on the final 2 drives, one at the end of regulation and one in overtime? It was Jimmy Garoppolo. Guess who didn't deliver on the final drive in overtime? It was Matthew Stafford. And Stafford opened this game 15 of 16. So he was red hot at the start. Really opposite of Garoppolo, right, who was not red hot at the start of the game. Yes, he completed 9 of 12 passes, but he fumbled that one ball in the backfield. He obviously wasn't comfortable in the pocket under major duress behind that offensive line that was missing both tackles. And, people were calling for Jimmy Garoppolo to be benched during the first half, which was ridiculously premature, showed that people don't really know what they're talking about football-wise on those plays. But you saw in the second half, once Garoppolo got going, once the 49ers offense started blocking better for him, he actually got more accurate as the game went along. And this is one of the biggest redeeming qualities about Jimmy Garoppolo that's not easily quantified and is not appreciated nearly enough by his detractors. This guy actually takes hits, takes bruises, gets up, and gets more accurate as these games go along. And if you look at completion percentage over expectation or any tape, you can see that Garoppolo hangs in there while he gets the crap beaten out of him, and he's able to deliver the ball accurately downfield. The same could not be said about Matthew Stafford in the second half of 49ers Rams on Sunday. DeMeco Ryans, 49ers defensive coordinator, did an excellent job down the stretch because he started dialing up blitzes at times that confused Matt Stafford. You can't call too many blitzes with Dre Greenlaw up the A gap or Fred Warner coming around one of the edges, but you can call a finite amount of them. And usually, if you call them at the right time, they can bust up a play. It's hard to blitz a quarterback like Tom Brady, for example. Hell, it's even hard to blitz a quarterback like Jimmy Garoppolo. And it should be hard to blitz a quarterback like Matthew Stafford because these guys are veterans. They see what's coming. The blitzer vacates a zone, and you throw to the zone that the blitzer vacates, and you could usually burn it. But Ryans beat Matt Stafford in the chess match. He beat him when it was 17-10 with a Dre Greenlaw blitz. He beat him later with Fred Warner. And the 49ers obviously hit Stafford 13 times, and he was sacked 5 times. Lo and behold, by overtime, Matthew Stafford was not throwing accurate passes, with the best example being the miss to Odell Beckham Jr. on the game's final play. If Jimmy Garoppolo throws that ball down the right sideline, 10 yards underthrown, woefully short, and it's intercepted by a rookie cornerback, because that's exactly what Matthew Stafford did. It was intercepted by Ambry Thomas in crunch time. Garoppolo would be crucified. Garoppolo would be run out of town. Now, I'm sure that the LA media and the LA Twitter world is unhappy with Matthew Stafford, but still, this is a guy that 49ers fans were just pining after and probably still are, the unreasonable ones, because he has a big arm. Well, how valuable was Matthew Stafford's big arm when he underthrew Odell Beckham Jr. by 10 yards at the biggest spot of the game? And the bigger point here is that he underthrew him, and he started being inaccurate in the second half after he got hit several times by the 49ers. And that's one thing that Garoppolo just doesn't seem to be as negatively impacted by. He gets hit a lot because the 49ers offensive line is sketchy, yet somehow he stays accurate. You saw the opposite with Matthew Stafford in the game on Sunday. So we're talking about Garoppolo's interception rate. I think it's too high. I think he's got to get it down to 2% for the playoffs. 2.7% is below average. It's not good. And he can be so aggressive on those middle passes that it hurts him and it hurts the 49ers' efficiency. But he's got this redeeming quality. We can be unbiased. We can be fair in our judgments of Jimmy Garoppolo. We can criticize the interceptions. We can criticize some of the limitations with mobility. We can say that he's an executor of Kyle Shanahan's offense, but we can also say, boy, this guy's tough. This guy can step in there against one of the best pass rushes in the league in the Los Angeles Rams and Aaron Donald and Leonard Floyd and, obviously Von Miller coming across the edge or around the edge against a backup left tackle and Colton McKivitz, essentially the 49ers' fourth string left tackle. He could take punishment and he could still remain accurate. And that goes back to, Jimmy Garoppolo's blue collar upbringing, the fact he played games at Eastern Illinois, which is an FCS school. There was one against Iowa where Eastern Illinois was playing with a fourth string left tackle. And so this is an FCS team playing a D1 Big Ten school with a left tackle that, had never seen action in college before. And I think that it was Adrian Claiborne, who ended up playing in the NFL. He was with the Falcons, who was rushing for Iowa. And Garoppolo was a freshman in college, and he just got thrown into the fire, and somehow he survived. He ended up starting for 4 years at Eastern Illinois, throwing for 5,000 yards his senior year. So, I mean, the ability to overcome physical punishment and to deliver when stuff is not perfect around him, that was something that was imprinted in this guy in college, and it's lived on through the pros. And you saw it in this game against the Rams, in which he delivered with the hurt thumb behind 2 backup offensive tackles. And it's definitely something that should be appreciated, because meanwhile, Matthew Stafford, the golden boy, right? He came out in 2008 from Georgia, number 1 overall pick out of the SEC, cannon for an arm. It was a guy that, was basically the anointed one. Everybody likes the physical characteristics. And I think Stafford's a tough guy, and he's been a good quarterback. But, he was failing in ways that Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't. The SEC number 1 overall pick that's been in the league forever was failing in ways that the guy who originally came from the FCS, who supposedly has a limited physical skill set, wasn't. So that just goes to show you that it's the toughness, it's the small things that win games at the NFL level. All right, guys, let's move on to the next point. This one right here, this one bugs me a little bit, because a lot of people, they go with the fake smart comments. This is one of the big fake smart comments. Ooh, I watch tape. What does that even mean? That you could pull up YouTube and watch a few highlights. You could watch people breaking down all 22. Actually go and step out on a football field. You see how wide a football field is. It's 53 1/3 yards wide. Okay, it's a lot wider than you think it is. It's obviously 120 yards long, including the end zones, but it's over 53 yards wide. So throwing just a 5-yard out, with the hash marks in place, especially, is not an easy throw. But there's these people who have this go-to line, and they say that Garoppolo can't throw outside the numbers. And that is, I mean, first of all, it's incorrect. And second of all, it's just this laughable oversimplification. And it was absolutely roasted by his performance against the Rams. Most of that game's biggest throws from Jimmy Garoppolo came outside the numbers. Twice to Jawan Jennings on third downs in overtime, Jimmy Garoppolo threw out patterns outside the numbers. And if you stand yourself on a football field and see how wide 53 yards really is, and see how hard an out pattern, one that is delivered with enough velocity so the cornerback doesn't issue a pick six, if you see how hard that is, you will see how impressive that throw is. And then obviously, probably Garoppolo's most impressive throw of the day came when he stepped up in the pocket and nailed Deebo Samuel, another throw that was outside the numbers. Deebo, awesome. I mean, have we ever seen a receiver that stocky that can accelerate as quickly as he does and cut as nimbly as he does? I mean, the guy's awesome. And as long as Garoppolo can set him up for yards after the catch, the 49ers are going to be a productive offense. I mean, it was special, but it was also a special throw. And the 49ers moved the ball in a minute and 1 second in 5 plays when they absolutely had to, and Garoppolo was delivering outside the numbers. I mean, so much for this narrative. I mean, go back to the Cincinnati game. That throw to Jawan Jennings was outside the numbers, and it was a perfect throw. Don't confuse what the 49ers do schematically with some kind of physical inability. Look, we should accentuate and praise what the 49ers receivers do so well. I mean, Deebo Samuel is delivering all-time yards after the catch efficiency. Jawan Jennings rumbles after the catch. Brandon Ayuk is a yak guy too, but in a different way. He spins off of tackles. He's a little bit more slippery and elusive, a little less physical than guys like Deebo Samuel and Brandon Ayuk. And then you have George Kittle, who was fined $10 every single time that he ran out of bounds as a rookie in 2017. And he obviously took it to heart. He never runs out of bounds, and he just runs through people. He reenacts WWE WrestleMania every time that he catches the ball and rumbles downfield. So when you have that as the weapons, then you should be allergic to the sideline. As an offense, as a schematic wizard like Kyle Shanahan, you don't want your guys anywhere near the sideline, because the sideline is a defender that can take you down without having to tackle you. You want guys in the middle of the field to force the defense to try to tackle these yak monsters. So you attack the middle of the field. It only makes logical sense. It's 1 + 1 = 2 kind of stuff. And that's why Garoppolo, he has got the quick release. He's obviously accurate on those passes in short windows over the middle because of the quick release. And the 49ers don't have a great offensive line, but mainly because of the talents of Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, George Kittle, Jawan Jennings, all these guys, mainly because of their talents. That's why you attack the middle of the field. Now, will defenses try to stop that? Absolutely. But they can't stop it completely, because when the 49ers need to, when Garoppolo needs to, he can throw outside the numbers. So we got to put context to this absolutely stupid oversimplification. He can throw outside the numbers, but he specializes in the throws over the middle. Why? Because that's football, that's scheme. And guess what? It's working well for the 49ers. Next point, Garoppolo has thrived under deadline pressure. This has been obvious this year. You go back to the Packers game in week 3. It wasn't a perfect game for Jimmy. He was missing on short throws early in that game. That led to the 49ers getting behind. Defense also wasn't good in the first half, but he got it together in the second half, started making some awesome throws. There was that touchdown to Ayuk. And then obviously the drive and the touchdown to Kyle Juszczyk to give the 49ers a 28-27 lead. When they absolutely had to have it, Garoppolo led the 49ers to a score. You saw, it happen again against Seattle in, what was it? Week 13, week 14. 49ers go 96 yards. Almost tied the game, couldn't get it done at the end. Very next week in Cincinnati, it got ugly there for parts of the second half when the 49ers absolutely needed it. Garoppolo got them into what should have been game-winning field goal range, but Robbie Gould missed it. But then Garoppolo got it done when they absolutely needed it in overtime against the Bengals. And then obviously 49ers had a 0.4% chance of winning. They get the ball back. Garoppolo marches them down the field against the Rams. They tie the game, 5 plays, 88 yards. And then overtime, he gets the job done. So there is something to the fact that when the 49ers absolutely need it, ice is running through this guy's veins. It's going to put him in 49ers lore. I mean, he's already been the quarterback of a team that went to the Super Bowl. He led important wins during that season, also at the nick of deadline pressure against the New Orleans Saints, against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Jimmy Garoppolo did great things. He didn't throw a single incompletion in the second half of Week 17 at Seattle, which was another must-win game for home field advantage. And again, this season, the propensity to deliver in the clutch has been there for Jimmy Garoppolo. And we saw it again against the Rams. And that win, I mean, no matter how much people are going to hate this guy, and we could talk about his flaws, we can talk about, again, some of the physical shortcomings, and most of them revolve around mobility. No matter how much you talk about that, you can't deny the fact that this win is going to live on in 49ers history forever. And if they go deeper into the playoffs, this win against the Rams is just going to be that much more exalted. But it already is an all-timer for the 49ers. It already is a comeback from a 17-0 deficit against the rival with everything on the line on the road. I mean, this is stuff that people will remember. This is what sports are all about. So it's something that Garoppolo has to get credit for. Second to last point here. Garoppolo is a good quarterback to throw behind a sketchy offensive line. And this is where I start shifting to the talk about the game against the Dallas Cowboys. Because the 49ers, the offensive line is going to be sketchy in at least one way against the Cowboys. And that's at right tackle and probably at right guard too. Brunskill and Tom Compton are good run blockers, but we just know that's the reality the 49ers are working with. They're not good pass protectors. There could be an even greater complication, and it's the same one that we saw against the Rams. There is a chance that Trent Williams doesn't play. And if that happens, then you have Colton McKivitz at left tackle, you have Daniel Brunskill at right guard, and you have Tom Compton at right tackle. Those are 3 below average pass protectors. You have Alex Mack, but this is a 36-year-old Alex Mack at center, and you have Laken Tomlinson at left guard. So you have 2 above average pass protectors. That usually doesn't cut it for almost any quarterback in the NFL. That wouldn't cut it, especially in a playoff game. But for some reason, it worked for the 49ers against the Rams, and it didn't work for a while. Jimmy Garoppolo was getting drilled in the first half, but somehow, some way, the 49ers ended up playing the game on their own terms. A lot of it was Jimmy Garoppolo's release. 2.4 seconds on average from snap to throw. That was one of the lowest, quickest figures in the NFL. Week 10 against the Rams, he was at 2.3 seconds from snap to throw. That was the quickest figure in the NFL. And that is Garoppolo's probably greatest asset, is how quickly he can get rid of the ball. He also processes the quick game very fast. And because of that, he is a good quarterback to put behind an offensive line that is caving in from the tackle positions. As I said earlier, this wasn't the first time that Garoppolo beat the Rams behind an offensive line that was playing 2 backup tackles. Go back to Week 6 of the 2019 season. The 49ers were missing both Joe Staley and Mike McGlinchey. They started Justin Skule at left tackle, and they started Daniel Brunskill at right tackle. 49ers won the game 20-7. It was an efficient performance from Jimmy Garoppolo, and people were surprised. That wasn't the first time, and it wouldn't be the last time they would have to overcome an offensive line that had several holes, and this really, really may be the case against the Dallas Cowboys, who are going to bring heat with Micah Parsons. If the 49ers don't have Trent Williams, it's going to be a huge, huge problem. They also have DeMarcus Lawrence in Dallas. They also have a whole stable of edge rushers beyond those 2 guys that could give the 49ers a lot of trouble. So you're going to need a quarterback that can get rid of the ball quickly. The common, casual, incorrect football assumption is that, the offensive line sucks. Why don't we just put in a mobile quarterback so he can run away from them? Well, it didn't work out for Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs in the Super Bowl when the entire offensive line was hurt last season and they played the Buccaneers. Mahomes didn't have a chance. The offensive line matters regardless of who's playing quarterback. Tom Brady has had the amazing fortune of having offensive line continuity with Tampa Bay. 91% of his games have featured all 5 of the same offensive linemen, or snaps. 91% of his snaps have featured all 5 of the same offensive linemen. There are quarterbacks in the league that will have like a 20% all 5 offensive linemen rate. So Brady's enjoyed continuity. Because of that, he's been able to deliver well into his 40s. But I guarantee you, if Tom Brady were given Patrick Mahomes' O-line situation in last year's Super Bowl, if you flipped offensive lines, the result would also flip. So it's so important to have guys who can actually block for you. But if you don't, if you enter this game against the Cowboys as the 49ers, like you did against the Rams, and you face a great pass rush, one with Micah Parsons and DeMarcus Lawrence coming off both of the edges without either of your starting offensive tackles, you better have a quarterback who can get the ball out quick. That is the only potential equalizer for being overmatched along the offensive line. And that's something that Garoppolo is able to do. So he deserves more credit for being able to operate behind a sketchy offensive line, because that's what he did against the Rams. So the bottom line here is that Garoppolo has proven himself to be a winner. I don't even know what the record is with the 49ers off the top of my head, but it's close to a 700 winning percentage. And the reason that he's a winner is because he's efficient. And efficiency is correlated with winning. So, yes, winning is a quarterback stat. The goal of the game is to win. And the quarterback is the most impactful player on the field. It's the most important position. This is efficiency. Jimmy Garoppolo, top 5. Rodgers, Mahomes, Brady, Stafford, Garoppolo ahead of Herbert and Burrow. Is he the most physically talented of those quarterbacks on the screen? No. Aaron Rodgers is the most accurate of all of them. Aaron Rodgers is probably the best processor of those quarterbacks. He only has 4 interceptions. Patrick Mahomes probably has the most physical gifts out of that list. Tom Brady, obviously, he knows what he's doing, and he might win the MVP. We talked about Matt Stafford. I think Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't have the arm strength of Matt Stafford, who has an absolute cannon, but he might be tougher than Matt Stafford as far as being able to rebound from hits and still deliver accurately. So Garoppolo has attributes of his own. And while he may not be one of the 10 most athletic or 10 most physically imposing quarterbacks, he consistently is able to be efficient within Kyle Shanahan's scheme because he's able to execute what is drawn up, and he's able to do it consistently enough in crunch time, especially, to have his performance be correlated with winning football. And that's absolutely something that the 49ers are going to carry with them going into this game against the Dallas Cowboys. That's going to be extremely, extremely important to track and extremely important to be patient with. So many people wrote the quarterback off after, just 30 minutes of play or 28 minutes of play against the Rams, when, most of the failures in the first half were functions of all 11 men, right? Pass protection needed to be better. 49ers needed to hold on to more passes downfield. They needed to run better routes. Football is a team sport. And the more patience and the more understanding that people have of the intricacies and the understanding that Garoppolo is an executor of a more complex Kyle Shanahan system, the more that they'll understand how this can all cohesively come together for the 49ers to have a chance against the Cowboys. And this is a good Dallas defense that the 49ers are going to have to face. And it's absolutely going to be a huge challenge. But I think based on what we saw from Jimmy Garoppolo, even with the thumb against the Rams, I think that the 49ers are happy with who they have at quarterback, because they have a guy who's a proven winner, who's been able to win in the playoffs before, who's been able to play complementary football. The 49ers will run the ball just as much as they'll pass it if all goes according to plan. They ran 31 times and Garoppolo passed 32 times against the Rams. So they're going to try to have a balanced attack, and that's where they like their quarterback to be. All right, I haven't looked at any of these comments, so I'm going to look at a couple of these. And if you have any questions right now, I just opened them. We will answer some of them because I did promise a little bit of a late night Q&A, and then we'll all go to bed. Do I believe that Jimmy Garoppolo deserves the Len Oshmont Award this year? He shined through adversity, showed courage, and inspired his teammates. The Len Oshmont Award is essentially the 49ers Team MVP Award. There might be, Deebo Samuel is special. The Ed Block Courage Award might be a good one for Jimmy Garoppolo. But at the end of the day, a quarterback is still more likely to be the most valuable player. And I know that it's not directly defined as the most valuable player, but the Oshmont normally is considered that. So Garoppolo should absolutely be in consideration. I love Trey Lance. I thought the 49ers should draft Trey Lance about a year ago. I wrote the piece. It was in January. of 2020 because Garoppolo was just not available enough for the 49ers. And it was time to start thinking about a longer-term future plan. And I, knew that Kyle Shanahan wanted to follow in the footsteps of his father, Mike, who developed both Steve Young and then John Elway and had them playing their best football. And those were guys who were both accurate and could move. I thought Kyle Shanahan really wanted to get on the mobility train. And I think that he has with Trey Lance. But I also think that Trey Lance is very raw. He only had 318 throws at North Dakota State. We saw him in week 5. He wasn't ready to deliver 25 to 30 decisions from the game, good decisions from the game, in the game from the pocket. And because of that, it was, something where Trey Lance would have to learn on the scout team because the 49ers were trying to be a playoff contender this year. I thought Lance made a lot of progress from week 5 to week 17, and he has a big offseason ahead of him. Should Kyle sprinkle some Trey Lance packages in there next week to throw the defense off? I'm always a big proponent of Kyle Shanahan using all of the talent on his roster. And I think Trey Lance has a skill set that Jimmy Garoppolo doesn't, and I think he could complement it. I think Shanahan thought so earlier in the season, but I think that Jimmy Garoppolo has done some stuff better than the 49ers have thought he would. And Kyle Shanahan has trouble play calling for 2 quarterbacks because it's just his style. So if Kyle's not comfortable with it, the 49ers won't do it. I do think it could potentially help the 49ers, though, and let's see what happens on that front. A lot of 49ers-Cowboys predictions here. This is the Jimmy Garoppolo conversation, guys. Let's keep it on point because I want to see some questions to answer them. How far does Jimmy need to go into the playoffs to lock down another season on the 49ers roster? By the way, we're about at a record amount of viewers right now, even though it's 10:30. I'm sure people are watching in bed, but I don't know. I think that so much of it depends on Trey Lance's readiness and what Kyle Shanahan thinks of Trey Lance. And he's going to watch a lot of practice film and see how Trey developed on the scout team here over the course of the offseason. 49ers don't really have to make a decision, right, until the new league year starts. And even then, they don't have to make a decision, but teams are going to want to trade for a quarterback. And at some point, Jimmy Garoppolo's value will crest. Right now, it's probably going up. The 49ers are sitting at the table right now with option power, though, so they don't have to decide. And I think so much of this depends on where Trey Lance is as far as being ready to guide the 49ers to the playoffs in 2022. If Shanahan thinks that Lance isn't ready yet, as is possible, but he did make progress from 5 to 17, it's more likely they keep Garoppolo. Now, Garoppolo can seal the deal if he takes the 49ers to the Super Bowl. If he is the driving force, like he was one of the driving forces against the Rams in 3 playoff games to take the 49ers to the Super Bowl, you would be insane to not keep Jimmy Garoppolo around. But that's not likely right now. So we'll see what the 49ers' next decision is. Just remember 49ers history whenever you talk about this quarterback position. They kept Montana and Young on the same team for a long time. It ended up being, players – Montana and Young may not have liked it, but it ended up benefiting the 49ers. It's never bad to have depth at the most important position. We will know about these guys tomorrow. Practices tomorrow, so I'll be back out to the facility, and I'm going to have more videos, more articles, more of everything for you. I'm going to answer more of these questions tomorrow, but Jason asks good ones, so I'll do this one right now. How do you feel about Arden Key, Eric Armstead, DJ Jones, Kentavious Street, and Nick Bosa against the Cowboys' offensive line? I think the Dallas always is a good line. I always respect Dallas's line. But the Rams also had the number 1 pass block win rate in the league, and the 49ers won up front. They hit Stafford 13 times. They sacked him 5 times. The 49ers started winning more and more as that game went along. I think the 49ers offensive line has improved so much under Chris Kasarik this year that they are now at a point where they can pressure quarterbacks even against the best offensive lines in football. And that's a huge deal. So that's how I feel about that. Maybe the 49ers will run a lot. This is a hypothetical that we just don't know because we don't know what kind of defense the Dallas Cowboys are going to emphasize. Are they going to emphasize the run or are they going to emphasize the pass on defense? And that's why complementary football is so powerful. And I'll leave you guys with this. Jimmy Garoppolo threw over 30 times against the Rams in the same game that the 49ers also saw a streak of 10 straight runs. So the 49ers ran at volume in a stretch, and they also passed at relative volume. In other words, they did both, right? They did both. They ran and they passed that volume. And that just shows you that they're a good football team and a balanced offense. So some games will dictate that the 49ers run more, and it's all depending on how the opposing defense plays them. And some games will dictate that they pass more. And we really can't, put our finger on it until we actually see the Cowboys take the field, because they're game planning right now. Henry, thank you for the tip. He says tons of Niner fans are making the trip to Dallas. I'm flying out on Saturday. I will also be there, so I'll see all you guys in Dallas. I'm really excited for this game. Again, bringing back the 90s. Yeah, I would assume Jimmy Garoppolo will practice tomorrow, maybe in a limited fashion to kind of rest the thumb, but I would think that he's going to be out there. It seemed that his thumb made it through the game fine. All right, guys, thank you. We're over 500. That kind of encourages me to keep on going here. This is the comment from Henry. Again, thanks a lot. Saying all those Niner fans are coming out. Somebody asked me if Shanahan has ever faced Dan Quinn before. I'm sure that he has, back in his Washington days when Quinn was with Seattle. I mean, Shanahan's so complimentary of Quinn's defensive scheme and, the whole 4-3. I mean, Gus Bradley, Dan Quinn, Robert Saleh. It's a big tree, right? And Shanahan has always had trouble with it, but he's also been able to – he respects it. The scheme has had trouble with Shanahan, and Shanahan's had trouble with the scheme. So there is familiarity there. The chess match will be fascinating. All right, any more questions? If there's a good one, I'll answer it. If not, I'm getting going because we just dipped in viewers. 20 people just decided to leave. So I think it's about time to go. Thank you, guys. Everything was good. Make sure you subscribe. I'll talk to you all very soon. Good night. Oh, by the way, let me know in the comment section if we should call it Late Night Lombardi or Lombardi After Dark. All right, everybody.